Dr. Haywan was working late in her laboratory when she heard a strange sound coming from the maintenance tunnels below the station. It was a low, pained sound that made her stop what she was doing and listen carefully. She had spent 5 years studying alien creatures on the research vessel called the Sejong, and she knew the sounds of different species very well. This sound was different. This sound was the cry of something that was hurt and alone. Haywan put down her tools and walked toward the tunnel entrance. The station was quiet at this time of night. Most of the crew members were sleeping in their quarters, and the automated systems were running the ship smoothly. She knew she should not go into the tunnels alone. It was against station rules, but her heart told her that something needed help, and she could not ignore that feeling. When she entered the dark tunnel, her eyes slowly adjusted to the dim light. She could see a large shape moving in the shadows. As she walked closer, she realized what it was. A Krell creature was lying on the cold metal floor. It was young, maybe only 2 or 3 meters tall, which meant it was still a child by Krell standards. The creature had orange fur that was matted with blood. One of its shoulders had a large, ugly wound that looked very painful. Haywan gasped. Krell cubs were never allowed on human stations without direct supervision. It was one of the most important rules. The Krell were humanity's best friends among the alien species, but they were also very protective of their young. Having a Krell cub here without permission could cause serious problems between the two civilizations. But Haywan could not think about rules and politics right now. She could only think about the pain that this young creature was feeling. The cub looked up at her with large, frightened eyes. The creature made a soft whimpering sound as if asking for help. Haywan slowly approached the cub, making soft, calm sounds to show that she was friendly. She had learned how to calm scared Krell creatures during her years of studying them. The cub watched her carefully but did not try to run away. It was too weak and hurt to run. "It is okay," Haywan said softly in the Krell language, which she had learned to speak quite well. "I am a doctor. I will help you. You are safe now." The cub made another sound, this time quieter and less frightened. Haywan carefully examined the wound on the creature's shoulder. It looked like the cub had been hit by something heavy, maybe a falling cargo container or a piece of equipment. The wound was deep and would definitely need medical care. If the cub did not get treatment soon, the infection could become very serious. Without thinking any more about the rules or what might happen, Haywan made a decision. She would bring the cub to her personal laboratory. It was a risk, but it was the right thing to do. A living creature was in pain, and she had the skills to help. That was all that mattered to her at that moment. Haywan called the maintenance station and told them that she needed a medical transport cart for moving equipment. When it arrived, she carefully helped the injured cub onto the soft platform. The journey to her laboratory was long and quiet. The cub lay still, breathing slowly, as if it understood that it was being helped. Once they reached her lab, Haywan got to work immediately. She cleaned the wound with special medical solutions that would not harm Krell's skin, but would remove all the dirt and infection. The cub made soft sounds of pain but stayed still, as if it trusted this human doctor. Then Haywan used advanced medical equipment to seal the wound properly. She worked carefully and gently, treating the cub as she would treat any patient who needed her help. After the physical wound was treated, Haywan realized that the cub needed nutrition to help it heal properly. Krell cubs had specific dietary needs that were very different from human needs. But Haywan had spent years studying Krell biology. She knew exactly what nutrients and minerals would help this young creature recover quickly and strongly. She went to her personal food storage and found some of her favorite snacks from Earth. She had dried fruits, special nuts, and chocolate that her family had sent her from home. These foods meant a lot to her because they reminded her of Earth, of home, of her family far away. But right now, this injured cub needed them more than she did. Heywan began mixing and preparing special snack combinations. She added extra amino acids and minerals that would help the Krell cub's body heal faster. She used her knowledge of chemistry and biology to create something that would taste good to a Krell, but would also give the cub exactly what it needed to become strong again. The cub watched her with curious eyes as she worked. When the first snack was ready, Heywan offered it to the cub. The young creature smelled it carefully, then ate it slowly. Soon the cub's eyes became brighter. It seemed to feel better. Heywan prepared more snacks, and the cub ate them eagerly. She could see the color returning to the creature's face. She could see the pain in its eyes becoming less sharp. Hours passed. Heywan sat beside the injured cub, making sure it was comfortable. She talked to it softly in the Krell language. She told it that everything would be okay, that it was safe, that she would help it until it was strong again. The cub listened to her voice and seemed to find comfort in her words. As the morning light came through the laboratory windows, Heywan finally realized what she had done. She had kept an alien creature in her private laboratory all night without reporting it to the station commander. She had treated it with human medical equipment. She had given it food from her personal supplies. There would be questions and investigations and possibly serious consequences. But when she looked at the young cub sleeping peacefully on the medical platform, breathing deeply and steadily, with its wound carefully bandaged and its body recovering, Heywan did not feel worried. She felt something else. She felt right. She felt like she had done exactly what she was supposed to do. She did not know that this simple act of kindness would soon change everything. She did not know that her decision to help an injured creature would set off a chain of events that would reshape the relationship between humans and Krell forever. She only knew that a young creature had been in pain, and she had helped it. That was enough for her. Heywan settled into a chair beside the sleeping cub and closed her eyes. She would face whatever came next. But for now, she had done the right thing, and that was what mattered most. The communication came early in the morning. A Krell military ship was requesting immediate docking permission at the human station. The message was urgent and official. Captain Park Teo, the commander of the station, received the message on his personal communication device while he was still in his sleeping quarters. He dressed quickly and went to the command center to find out what was happening. Nobody on the station knew why a Krell military commander would be arriving without warning. There were no scheduled meetings. No important diplomatic events had been planned. The situation was confusing and slightly dangerous. When high-ranking military officers from different species show up without explanation, it usually means something serious has happened. Teo was sitting in his command chair, preparing to welcome the Krell visitor, when he suddenly remembered something important. Dr. Heywan had not come to the morning briefing. She had not answered any of the station messages. Her assistant, a young researcher named Jin Ho, had mentioned that Heywan was working on something special in her laboratory, but had not given any details. Teo decided to send Min Seo, the station's security chief, to find Heywan and bring her to the command center. Min Seo was a sharp and intelligent officer who could handle difficult situations. She would know how to handle this mystery carefully and professionally. When Min Seo arrived at Heywan's laboratory, she found something she did not expect at all. There was a young Krell creature resting on a medical platform in the lab. The cub was sleeping peacefully, its shoulder wrapped carefully in medical bandages. Heywan was sitting beside it, looking tired but calm. Min Seo's face showed shock. "Heywan, what is this?" she asked, pointing at the sleeping creature. "What is a Krell cub doing in your personal laboratory?" Heywan stood up and explained everything calmly. She told Min Seo about finding the injured cub in the maintenance tunnels. She explained how the creature was hurt and needed help. She described her medical treatment and the special nutrient snacks she had prepared. When she finished speaking, Minseo looked at her with a mixture of concern and understanding. "We need to tell Captain Teo immediately," Minseo said. "And you need to know that a Krell military commander is arriving at the station right now. I think we may have found out why." They brought the cub to a proper medical facility, while Haiwan explained everything to Captain Teo. The captain listened carefully and asked many questions. He was not angry, but he was very serious. This was a complicated situation that could have serious consequences for the relationship between humans and Krell. Just as they finished their discussion, the Krell commander arrived. Her name was Zethkar, and she was one of the most important military officers in the entire Krell fleet. Her presence on a human station was unusual and impressive. She moved with power and confidence, and her compound eyes seemed to analyze everything they saw. Teo welcomed the commander with all the respect and courtesy that human protocol demanded. Zethkar explained that a young Krell cub, the offspring of an important Krell family, had gone missing during a cargo operation on the station. The Krell military had been searching everywhere for the creature. Now she had received information that the cub was here in a human laboratory being cared for by a human doctor. Haiwan stepped forward. "Commander Zethkar, I am the doctor who found your cub. The creature was injured in the maintenance tunnels. I brought it here to treat its wounds. I meant no disrespect to Krell customs or authority. I only wanted to help a creature that was in pain." Zethkar's expression was hard to read. She moved closer to where the cub was resting on the medical platform. She examined the bandages carefully. She looked at the medical records that Haiwan had documented on her computer. She observed the nutrients and healing preparations. Finally, she spoke in a deep, resonant voice. "I have a question for you, Dr. Haiwan," the commander said. "How did you know which treatments and nutrients would help my cub? Krell biology is complex. Human medical science should not be able to understand our needs so completely." Haiwan explained her years of research studying Krell physiology. She described her knowledge of Krell nutritional needs and biological processes. She spoke about the importance of understanding different species if humans and Krell were going to work together as trading partners and allies. Zethkar nodded slowly. "And the snacks you gave my cub. I have analyzed them. They are not standard human nutrition. You have added specific compounds. You have enhanced them with minerals and amino acids that would normally take Krell doctors much longer to synthesize. Why did you do this?" "Because it would help the cub heal faster," Haiwan said simply. "Because a young creature was suffering, and I had the knowledge to reduce that suffering. Because that is what a good doctor does, regardless of which species the patient belongs to." Something changed in Zethkar's face when she heard this answer. It was a small change, but it was there. The commander looked at her cub, who was now waking up, opening its large eyes and looking around. When the cub saw Zethkar, it made a happy, excited sound. The cub tried to stand up but was still weak from its injury. Zethkar caught the cub and held it carefully. She examined her offspring with her own eyes and hands, checking the wound and the healing progress. Then she turned back to Haiwan. "Doctor, my cub should take several weeks to recover from such an injury," Zethkar said. "Even with the best Krell medical care, this is the normal time required. But looking at the wound now, at the way it is healing, at the strength I feel returning to my cub's body, I believe your treatment has accelerated recovery by significant margins. This is remarkable work." Word of what Haiwan had done spread quickly through the station. It spread even more quickly through the Krell fleet. Within days, other injured Krell warriors began requesting treatment at human medical facilities. Krell diplomats asked for consultations with human doctors. Even Krell trade representatives wanted to understand the secrets of human medical science. What had started as one doctor's simple act of kindness to an injured creature was becoming something much larger. It was becoming a bridge between two civilizations. It was showing that humans and Krell had something valuable to offer each other that went beyond trade agreements and military alliances. HFY did not think of herself as important or special. She was just a doctor who had helped a patient who needed help. But her actions had planted a seed, and that seed was beginning to grow into something that would change the galaxy forever. The question was whether that change would bring the two species closer together, or if it would create new dangers and competitions that neither civilization was prepared for. 3 weeks after Zethkar took her healed cub back to the Krell fleet, something strange started happening on the station. Injured Krell warriors began arriving at the human medical facility at an unusual rate. At first, it seemed like coincidence. But Minseo, the security chief, noticed a pattern emerging that made her very concerned. She compiled all the data into a detailed report. Krell injury cases had increased by exactly 500%, not 500% more than usual, 500% more than the highest levels ever recorded in the entire history of human-Krell relations. The increase was dramatic, sudden, and clearly deliberate. Minseo sat in Captain Teo's office with the report on the screen between them. Teo read through the statistics carefully, his expression becoming more serious with each line he read. The injuries were not accidents. They were not random. They were carefully measured, precisely calibrated injuries that required medical treatment but did not cause permanent damage. "They are doing this on purpose," Minseo said. "The Krell are intentionally injuring their own warriors and coming to us for treatment." Teo stood up and walked to the window of his office. He could see the busy docking areas where Krell ships came and went. "But why?" he asked. "What possible reason would they have for this strategy?" Minseo had already figured it out. Because of what HFY discovered. Because her medical treatments accelerate healing by 500%. A Krell warrior who receives human medical treatment comes back stronger, faster, and more capable than before. In military terms, that is the perfect weapon, a way to make your soldiers better without any advanced technology or genetic engineering. The implications hung in the air between them like a dark cloud. If the Krell were deliberately using human medical science to enhance their military strength, then humanity had accidentally provided something very dangerous. The Krell were not just patients seeking help. They were using the humans' compassion as a strategic advantage. Teo made a decision. He called an emergency meeting with Captain HFY, Minseo, Jin-Ho, and several other senior officers. When HFY heard what had been happening, she felt terrible. She had only wanted to help an injured creature. Now her medical knowledge was being used as part of a military strategy that could upset the balance of power in their entire sector of space. "We need to understand what is really happening," Jin-Ho suggested. She was HFY's assistant and had been studying the medical records carefully. "The Krell are smart enough to know that we would notice this pattern, so they must want us to notice it. They must want us to understand what they are doing. This is not deception. This is a message." Messages, Teo knew, could mean many different things. They could be threats. They could be warnings. They could be negotiations. He decided to send an official request to Commander Zethkar asking for a direct conversation about the increased injury rates. Zethkar agreed to the meeting immediately. She arrived at the station the next day alone, which was unusual for a military commander of her rank. When she sat across from Teo and HFY, her expression was calm and thoughtful. "Your security chief has done excellent work," Zethkar said without waiting for anyone to speak. "She has identified the pattern. That is exactly what we expected would happen. Humans are intelligent and observant. We knew you would discover our intentions within a few weeks." "Why?" HFY asked directly. "Why are you deliberately injuring your warriors?" "Because," Zethkar said slowly, "for the first time in our history we have access to something our own science cannot provide. We have access to a way of thinking about healing that our civilization lost centuries ago. Your species treats injury and illness not just as physical problems to be solved, but as moments of opportunity for complete improvement of the individual. You treat the body, but you also heal the mind and spirit." She paused, letting that information settle. "Krell warriors return from your medical facilities different," Zethkar continued. "Yes, they are stronger physically. Yes, they heal faster, but they are also changed in other ways. They speak of patience. They speak of compassion. They speak of value beyond their military function. This is something we need. This is something we have needed for a very long time." Teo leaned forward. "Commander, are you saying this is not a military strategy?" "It is a military strategy," Zethkar agreed, "but not the kind you feared. It is a strategy of improvement and evolution. The Krell have always believed that strength comes from efficiency, from the removal of emotion and sentiment. We have eliminated what we considered weakness. But in your medical facilities, our warriors discover that what we eliminated was not weakness. It was wisdom." Haywan felt tears beginning to form in her eyes. She had been carrying guilt about how her knowledge was being used. Now she understood that she had not created a weapon. She had created a bridge. But the conversation was not finished. Zethkar's expression became more serious. "However," she said, "not everyone in the Krell Dominion agrees with my philosophy. There are those in our government and military who see your medical advances as a threat. They fear that humans have developed something that could be used against us in warfare. There are those who believe we should claim your research as Krell intellectual property. There are even some who speak of more aggressive approaches." Min Seo exchanged a worried look with Teo. This was the real concern. If the Krell military leadership became convinced that human medical knowledge was a weapon, then the peaceful trade relationship between the two civilizations could collapse very quickly. "What do we need to do?" Teo asked. Zethkar stood up and placed her hand on Haywan's shoulder. It was a human gesture, and she had clearly learned it during her time caring for her injured cub. "You need to prove to the Krell leadership that your compassion is genuine. You need to prove that you offer this knowledge freely without expectation of advantage. And you need to help us understand that the strength of your civilization does not come from weapons or technology. It comes from your willingness to care for others, even when others are different from you. That is the weapon, Doctor. That is the power that frightens some of my people and attracts others." After Zethkar left, Haywan sat quietly in her laboratory, the same space where she had treated an injured cub only a few weeks ago. She thought about how such a simple action could create such large consequences. She thought about how kindness could be seen as either a gift or a threat, depending on who was looking at it. Jinho entered the laboratory, carrying new research materials. "We need to prepare something," she said. "Something that explains our medical philosophy, something that shows the Krell leadership exactly what Commander Zethkar is talking about." Haywan nodded. She understood. The real work was just beginning. The work of proving that humans could be trusted, the work of showing that science and compassion could work together, the work of building a future where two different civilizations could learn from each other and grow stronger together. It would not be easy. But when Haywan thought about the injured cub and the choice she had made to help it, she felt certain that it was right. Jinho spent many weeks studying the medical records and research data from Haywan's treatment of the Krell cub. She sat at her computer late into the night, analyzing every detail of what had happened. She looked at the compounds that were used. She examined the healing process step by step. She compared human medical techniques with Krell medical techniques. And slowly, a profound realization began to form in her mind. One night, Jinho came running into Haywan's office, excited and almost breathless. She had discovered something important, something that changed the way anyone would understand what had happened with the injured cub. "It was not the snacks," Jinho said, her words coming quickly. "I mean, Yes, the snacks helped, but that is not the real reason the Krell cub healed so much faster. The real reason is the way you treated the whole situation, the way you thought about healing. Hei-Wan looked confused. She asked Jin-Ho to explain more carefully. Jin-Ho pulled up her research on the screen. She showed Hei-Wan detailed comparisons of human medical science and Krell medical science. The Krell approach was very efficient. They could repair physical damage quickly and precisely. They had advanced technology and incredible understanding of biology. But there was something missing. "Look at this," Jin-Ho said, pointing at the data. "Krell doctors treat injury like a machine repair. They identify the problem. They fix the problem. The creature is functional again. That is it. The process is fast and efficient, but it is incomplete. Your approach, though, was completely different. You did not just repair the wound, you nourished the whole body, you supported the creature emotionally. You created an environment where healing could happen naturally and completely." Hei-Wan began to understand what Jin-Ho was saying. She had not used any special technology or magical healing methods. She had simply treated the cub like a living being that deserved complete care. She had combined physical medicine with comfort, with nutrition, with emotional support, with patience. "That is the real advantage," Jin-Ho continued. "Krell science is more efficient, but human medicine is more complete. We do not just fix what is broken. We help the whole person become stronger and healthier. That is why the cub healed 500% faster. Not because we have better technology, but because we have a different philosophy about what healing means." This realization spread through the research team like electricity. Jin-Ho began writing a detailed analysis. She called it Comparative Compassion in Medical Systems. She explained how human doctors understood that healing was not just a physical process. It was a psychological process, an emotional process, a spiritual process. Humans had learned over thousands of years that taking care of the complete person, not just the injury, created better outcomes and faster recovery. Hei-Wan realized that her natural human instinct had discovered something that Krell science had spent centuries not finding, and this realization became the foundation of a completely new way of thinking about medical treatment. The research was presented to the Krell Leadership Council. Hei-Wan stood before a group of the most important Krell military officers and government officials that had ever gathered on a human station. She explained, with Jin-Ho's help, exactly why the 500% increase in healing speed was not a result of advanced technology, but rather a different philosophy. "Krell medicine is strong," Hei-Wan said respectfully. "Your doctors are excellent, and your technology is advanced, but your civilization evolved as warriors. Your medicine evolved to keep warriors fighting. My civilization evolved as explorers and builders. Our medicine evolved to keep people whole. These are two different approaches. Neither is wrong, but together they are more powerful than either one alone." The Krell leadership had many questions. They wanted to understand every detail of the healing philosophy. Some of them were suspicious, wondering if this was actually an advanced form of manipulation. But one by one, the Krell officers began to understand what Hei-Wan was explaining. A very important Krell general named Krell-Ath asked a critical question. "Doctor, if we adopt this human medical philosophy, if our warriors receive this kind of complete healing treatment, will they be less willing to fight? Will they be less willing to serve?" Hei-Wan chose her words very carefully. This was the question that everything depended on. This was the question that would determine whether the Krell would accept or reject what she was offering. "No," she said, "they will fight differently. Not because they are weaker, but because they are stronger. They will understand that what they are fighting for matters. They will have the emotional strength to make decisions, not just follow orders. They will have the wisdom to know when fighting is necessary and when it is not. These things do not make warriors less effective. They make them more effective. Something shifted in the council chamber. The Krell officers looked at each other. They were warriors, yes, but they were also intelligent beings who could think about philosophy and strategy and the future. One of the council members, a female officer named Krell Mara, spoke up. I have received treatment at the human medical facility. I have experienced this complete healing that the doctor describes. I can tell you that it is real. The physical healing was faster, yes. But something else changed also. I felt seen. I felt valued as a complete being, not just as a weapon. And that changed me. That made me a better officer, a better soldier, a better person. Her words carried weight because she was speaking from her own experience. She was not offering theory or hypothesis. She was offering truth based on what she had felt and experienced. The council voted that day. They voted to officially accept human medical philosophy as a complementary approach to Krell medicine. They voted to establish joint training programs where Krell doctors could learn from human doctors. They voted to create medical centers where both human and Krell doctors could work together, combining their strengths. But there was a darker development that happened at the same time, in a different part of the Krell government. There were conservative Krell leaders who did not trust this change. They saw human compassion as weakness. They saw the Krell warriors returning from human medical treatment with new ideas and new perspectives as a threat to traditional Krell society. These conservative leaders began planning something different. They began planning how they could use human medical knowledge as a weapon rather than as a gift. They were not interested in mutual benefit or cooperation. They wanted advantage. They wanted control. Zethkar learned of these plans and sent an urgent message to Haiwan. The door is open now, the commander wrote, but there are those who want to close it and lock it and destroy the key. You and your people must prepare. What comes next will be more difficult than what has come before. The test of whether humans and Krell can truly trust each other is just beginning. Haiwan shared this warning with Teo and the other station leaders. They understood that they had entered a new phase. They had proved that compassion and human medical science could create something wonderful and beneficial. But now they had to prove that this gift was strong enough and valuable enough to overcome ancient fears and old ways of thinking about strength and advantage. The Joint Human-Krell Council met for the first time on a neutral space station called Harmony Prime. It was built exactly halfway between human space and Krell space, a symbol that the two civilizations were meeting as equals. Representatives from every human colony and every Krell province gathered in a large circular meeting room. They had come to hear Dr. Haiwan testify about why she had decided to treat an injured alien creature with complete medical care. Haiwan stood in the center of the room, looking at faces from two different species. Some faces showed hope, some showed fear, some showed curiosity. She took a deep breath and began to speak. I am here because the council wants to understand why I treated the Krell cub, she said simply. They want to know if my actions were part of a larger plan. They want to know if I was trying to create advantage for humanity. They want to know if I can be trusted. So I will answer honestly. She paused, gathering her thoughts. When I found the injured cub in the maintenance tunnel, I did not think about whether it was human or Krell. I did not think about politics or treaties or military strategy. I thought about one thing only. A young creature was suffering, and I had the knowledge to help reduce that suffering. As a doctor, as a human, that is what I knew I should do. I would have done the same thing if it was a human child. I would have done the same thing if it was any other species. Because that is what my civilization does at its best. We see someone in pain and we choose to help them. The council chamber was very quiet. All the representatives were listening carefully. But my actions did create larger consequences, Haiwan continued. They created a 500% increase in healing speed. They created new medical knowledge that the Krell did not have before. They created opportunities for cooperation and improvement. These are facts. And I understand that some people fear these facts. I understand that some people wonder if my compassion is actually a hidden weapon. She looked directly at the group of conservative Krell leaders who had been planning to weaponize human medicine. So I want to tell you something, Haiwan said. Human compassion is not a weapon. It is not a tool for gaining advantage. It is simply compassion. It is simply the choice to care for others because it is right, not because it brings benefit. If you are looking for advantage, you will not find it in what I did. If you are looking for understanding, for growth, for the possibility of becoming stronger together rather than trying to be stronger than each other, then you will find it here. The conservative Krell leader stood up. He was a large warrior named Krellvor, and his expression showed anger. You expect us to believe that your entire civilization will give away its medical advantages without expecting anything in return? That does not make sense. That is not how civilizations behave. That is not how anyone behaves when they have power. Haiwan looked at him calmly. You are right, she said. My civilization does sometimes use knowledge as advantage. We are not perfect. We make mistakes. We can be greedy and selfish and foolish, but we also have the capacity to choose differently. And when we see someone in pain, we often choose to help them anyway. This is not because we are perfect. It is because we are human. It is what we can become when we make that choice. Something happened in that moment. It was not visible. It did not make a sound. But something shifted in the understanding of the room. The representatives began to see that the issue was not whether to trust Haiwan. The issue was whether two different civilizations could choose to trust each other, whether they could choose to believe that cooperation was better than competition. Jinho stood up and presented her detailed research. She showed the council exactly how human medical philosophy worked. She explained the science and the psychology behind complete healing. She presented evidence that this approach actually worked, that it produced better results than either civilization could achieve alone. Then something unexpected happened. The Krell warriors who had received human medical treatment stood up, one by one, and spoke. They spoke about how the treatment had changed them. They spoke about returning to their duties with stronger bodies and clearer minds. They spoke about feeling valued as complete beings instead of just as military tools. And most importantly, they spoke about how this experience had changed the way they thought about other Krell, and about humans, and about what strength really meant. Krell Mara, the female officer who had spoken at the previous council meeting, gave the most powerful testimony. I came to this human station believing that humans were weak because they valued things other than strength, she said. I came believing that their compassion was a sign of inferiority. But I was wrong. I learned that what humans call compassion is actually a form of strength. It is the strength to see beyond yourself. It is the strength to care for others even when there is no advantage. It is the strength to build something better than yourself alone could build. She looked directly at the conservative Krell leaders. If we reject this opportunity, we reject the chance to become something greater than we are. We choose to remain limited by our old thinking. That is not strength. That is fear. Krellvor tried to argue more, but the room was turning against him. More and more representatives began to understand that Haiwan had done something remarkable. She had not just treated an injured creature. She had shown both civilizations that their differences could be strengths instead of weaknesses. The vote came swiftly. The council voted almost unanimously to establish permanent cooperation between humans and Krell. They voted to create joint medical academies. They voted to share research and knowledge freely. They voted to build a future based on mutual respect and mutual growth. Only Krellvor and a few other conservative leaders voted against the decision. But they were now the minority. The future had been decided. Later, after the council meeting was finished, Haiwan stood on the observation deck of Harmony Prime, looking out at the stars. She could see both human ships and Krell ships in the distance. traveling side by side toward a shared future. Zethkar joined her at the window. "You have done something remarkable, Doctor," the Krell commander said. "You have shown my people that we need not be locked in the old ways. You have shown us that there is another path." "I did not do it deliberately," Haywan said. "I simply helped a creature that was hurt." "Yes," Zethkar agreed. "And sometimes that is all it takes. Sometimes one act of kindness can change the direction of history. Sometimes one person choosing compassion can show an entire civilization what is possible." But even as they stood there, looking at the hopeful future, both of them knew that the real work was just beginning. Creating peace between civilizations was easy. Creating change within those civilizations was harder. The conservative Krell leaders and the military hawks among the humans were not going to give up easily. The 500% increase in healing speed had started something that could not be stopped, but it could be guided, shaped, and developed. The question now was not whether human and Krell could work together. The question was whether they could do it in a way that honored both cultures and created something truly new.